Good afternoon. Yes, we could call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. We'll go to the roll call. Jean Ingrid. Present. Mr. Carlos Fernandez, not present. Rafael Miner. Present. J.D. Gonzalez, not present. Mr. Teach did excuse himself, as well as Mr. Luis Hinojosa. Juan Pasquel. Present. Arturo Dominguez.
Present.
Ramiro Richard, third, present. Mr. David Puig, not present. He also excused himself. He was out of town, trying to make it. Mr. Bill Young, present. Mr. Prida, not here. Monica Salinas. Oh, no, that's wrong. Yes.
Robert Morris.
Morris, I know. It wasn't changed. Mr. Morris is present. Jason Ojosa also present, and Jerry Maldonado here. Okay, so we'll go to item number 3, public and citizen comments. I don't know if there's anybody with any comments or any comments filed in online or no? Okay, no comments at all? Okay. And we'll go to item number 4, the minutes from last meeting. Oh, and going back up, I want to
Recognize.
I need a motion to recognize J.D. Gonzalez.
Motion to approve meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, I was trying to get Mr. J.D. Gonzalez acknowledged, but there you go. Okay, motion to approve meetings, second.
First.
Aye. All in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes approved. And then for now, we just have one item for discussion on our agenda today, which is a motion with possible action to recommend Deputy City Manager to approach the elected governor, Dr. Americo Villarreal of Tamaulipas, to finish the studies, exchange diplomatic notes, and cross hazardous materials on World Trade Bridge and any other matters incident thereto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion.
All in favor? No discussion?
Ahora sí. Y
All right, open for discussion.
lo de no Laredo. Any discussion? Los arreglos aduanales.
Well, there's no discussion. We just, what we need is to have a complete package, or does anybody have something to
Apparently, there's two,
open up, what we get is open up a package to make sure we give this to the current city council so they could approach, but we want to feed them the information.
apparently there's two tests missing on the Mexican side by the state of Tamaulipas. And then when they finish those tests, they send them over to Washington for review. Apparently, this administration, the present administration already did that, but they failed. The tests weren't good, so they have to do them again. It seems like he's not doing anything anymore, so we would like for council to approach the new governor and ask him to do the testing so they could send them off and then do the exchange of the diplomatic letters so that we can cross hazmat through World Trade Bridge. I mean, there's a limitation. There's no explosives there, and it's limited to what we can cross through there. But I think this has been an issue since they opened that bridge the first day with the Mexican broker. So we're just trying to have an alternative border crossing for hazmat.
Mr. Chairman, Steve Lundy for the record, Assistant City Manager, and one of my departments is the Bridge Department. We will take this forward. We know that there is a change of government occurring in Mexico, and we recognize that I was the fire chief before, years back, and I was here when the permit process was going forward to designate the World Trade Bridge to move hazardous materials back and forth between the United States and Mexico. I'm familiar with it. We're prepared on our side, and in the various meetings that we had with Mexico, they were behind. And Mr. Dominguez is correct. There was some environmental studies that were required of them, and those things didn't materialize for Mexico. And so we're at a standstill in getting that accomplished. So we will take a look at that. The interim city manager, Ms. Cabello, Mr. Riaz-Zulmia and myself will continue to work and try to move that forward, because that was something that was in our plan, but we can't control what happens on the other side of the bridge and how fast they come along. We do have other discussions that we'd like to have with Mexico and the new government, because we're at a crossroad over there. We see that there is a possibility, there is an alignment of all one party, which means that if we can get together with them and continue to move the agenda of what's already been in motion, and take advantage of the opportunity that they can continue pushing all the projects that are ongoing in relation to the U.S., Laredo specifically, and Mexico, and our interaction together.
Okay.
And
Thank you, Mr. Landin.
I know, in our customs meetings, we know that on the US side, everything was done, but custom tells us if we don't have
You have to have it.
the presidential permit amended, we're not gonna accept not even
So-
a gallon of paint
The
through the road
question
trade.
is, so who, CBP, I know CBP is hesitant to let it, so they have their few bullet points that need to be covered for they to approve it, because I know CBP has been hesitant. There's some products that Mexico already authorized, and even CBP won't authorize it. So do we know the exact?
If legally we don't, if the customs is saying, if legally we don't have that exchange and the process of amending the presidential permit, we're not even gonna allow a gallon of paint to go through here. And that's what they've said in our
Correct.
customs meeting, so.
It was intended to take everything except for high-level explosives. Corrosives were gonna be permitted, poisons would be permitted, other hazardous cargo would be permitted. Explosives was something that we weren't comfortable with, passing it through the center of Mexico, because it's highly populated on that side, and the level of training of their first responders is very minimal. So as we had all of our dialogue with them, we made sure that to offer them even training from the fire department on our side to help facilitate this whole movement. But it was tied up with environmental concerns from the Mexican government. And so these bridges on our side, they already have the capture in the event that there's a spill on the bridge that keeps the chemical from getting into the water to pollute the water. Our intake will grab onto that water and it would really shut us down as a community. And so for that reason, we took a really close look at even allowing the chemicals to cross through there. Obviously, the ideal place is downstream from the intake of our water to allow anything on there, but these spillways and chambers were built on our side to be able to facilitate and protect the water. On the other side, the environmental isn't as far advanced as us, but I think the whole concept for them is the spillage after it crosses and how it can get to the river.
Well, I know for a fact that in the Yarrington administration, they started to construct, or you all send them the blueprints to
Correct.
the Mexican side, and they started in that administration, but they finished with Egidio Torres. That's when they finished the whole tank. So it's a copy of what we have underneath the bridge.
Correct.
And I think we're
It's on
okay
the
with.
land already.
They have it
the
on their
environment.
side and we have it on our side. So to us, I mean, we're content with that. I mean, we've never had a spill on the bridge, but you never know, and I think we're secured with that.
In the 30 years that I was in the fire department, and the last 12 as a chief, we never had a hazmat spill on any of our bridges.
That's the history. And then again.
But I guess what we need to do is make sure we have, if we know what missing, inform or have council correctly informed so they could approach the Mexican government and do it the first thing when they get on office in October. But if we start with, there's some tests that need to be done, and I don't know, how do we get that
Studies,
information?
There's two studies. Yo dije test, pero son two
Or
studies.
studies, yeah, but what, do we have something that we could get firmly on and go and grab it, or like, do we know exactly what is missing?
There's,
We're gonna lose
names.
time in that change of administration.
They have the two studies, either hydraulico, something hydraulico or something. We'll get the names so that we can help with those names that they have to do. But this started back in 2000 when they built that
But going
bridge.
back to Milos, I mean, so we don't waste time, taking into consideration that they're gonna do the change of the government in September, right?
October 1st.
If we go now and they're gonna do change, they're just falling deaf ears, or can we
We're
move
gonna
forward?
wait. We're gonna wait till the change of government. We're gonna petition to have a formal meeting with them, and we're gonna petition to move forward with everything that's been kind of stopped, and to try to reignite it.
And we can anticipate, because I think that have already been discussions that they will move forward with this project, right?
We're hoping that they're open
Hoping
to
or
it.
anticipating, we can kinda,
Yeah, no, I just, we wanna have the information on what it is
Fair
that
enough.
we need, so we can,
We'll have everything in line before we even approach them.
okay, thank you, Mr. Morris.
I just want to ask a question. We've mentioned before the presidential proclamation is required to be able to do that even. So is this something we need to do before that so that we can actually have somebody to go to the president and say, we have all this approval done, the studies are done? Or do we have to have the presidential proclamation first? Because without that, we can't move anything hazmat at that bridge.
Yeah, I think you have to have the ready thing for the Mexican side, and then that completes the application for them to amend the presidential permit or the bridge, something like that. I'm guessing
Mr.
that's.
Morris, if I may, good evening, committee members, Yvette Limon, Bridge Director for the record. We do have the amendment to the presidential permit. We received it in May 2014. We did. We do have the amendment, but in the amendment, and I'm going to read it to you. It indicates Article 13.2 of the presidential permit signed October 7, 1994 is amended and replaced in its entirety with the following provision. 2, the permittee shall route all hazardous materials from the downtown bridges to the United States facilities at Columbia Solidarity Bridge or to the United States facilities at Laredo World Trade Bridge. However, U.S. Department of Transportation Table 1 materials, which consist of explosives, radioactive, poison gas, and other toxic compounds, shall not be routed to Laredo World Trade Bridge. That's the more hazardous materials that Mr. Dominguez was talking about. It also says, the permittee shall not commence the transit of hazardous materials over Laredo World Trade Bridge until it has been informed that the government of the United States and the government of Mexico have exchanged diplomatic notes confirming that both governments authorize the commencement of such transit of hazardous materials shown in this box. So that's what the amendment allows. We do have the amendment. We just need to, as Mr. Landin mentioned, meet with the new government, advise some of the projects that we have ongoing so that we can move them forward.
I will expand a little bit on those tables. So in hazardous materials, there are certain tables that even if it's below so many pounds or gallons, they can really go unregulated. And so that is why some can cross, but the amounts are very minimal, small amounts. Not a whole poison gas truck, well, that's a truck with 8,000 gallons. So there's a difference. So we're on top of it, and we look forward to meeting with the Mexican government and hopefully bring back something positive to this committee.
Hopefully. We've been struggling with that for a while. I think it was like 2013 that they shut down Columbia like for 3 days, and we couldn't cross any hazmat. And so we spoke to Congressman Cuellar. We went to Washington and we asked him to help us out. And I guess he finished what he promised. And we're just waiting for the Mexican side, because I think we did, or the city invested more than $1 million in those things.
Yes.
And we have to take advantage.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Young?
Well, when I was working at Customs, I worked World Trade. That was my main bridge that I worked at. And we had different instances on the bridge because of the hazardous materials and stuff. We'd have to turn some back and some cross. One time we had a truck that crossed that wasn't really labeled going back to Mexico. and it stopped in the middle of the bridge, ran out of diesel fuel. It was loaded with explosives, but nobody knew it.
Again, quantities mean everything. You can be under a certain pound limit and not even have to put a label on the box or a placard on the truck.
Right.
And it all depends on quantity. And so ultimately, you can get away with running maybe a pallet of an explosive product, you know.
I recommend that you talk to customs first, like for example, the hand sanitizers, the little bottles, those are exempt, but they didn't want that on World Trade.
Because they're
They go to
flammable.
Colombia.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are exempt by Texas DOT on how you brace it and how you pack it and how even, a lot of hazardous waste is exempt. And but CBP won't even accept that. If it has a UN number, doesn't matter that. So that's kind of what I was want to say. We need to make sure we don't go do all this work and come back and CBP still says, oh, no UN number at all. So what would be we need to make sure from CBP, what would be their,
As long as it's not a class 1.
Yeah, class 1 explosive. And so ultimately, they're on the table, so the permit already has it. So what we're talking about is just having them finish their part of their studies and their authorizations. It's not gonna affect what's crossing because it's already been defined in the permit.
okay. Mr. Prida?
Thank you very much. On the issue of the government, of the new government, I think this is a federal issue on the Mexican side, on the government. It's Secretaría de Comunicaciones y Transportes, Aduanas. So we'll have to wait until the new state governor will enter. We can deal maybe with this with the city, with Mrs. Cantil Rosas, and she can take it down from there. But we'll have to wait for this.
Yes. We're gonna wait for the new administration to take over, and we're gonna use our state and federal elected officials, and it'll kind of be a unified approach. It's not gonna be just us showing up. We would really, and try to have a real formalized agenda in respect of their time and of course the time of our elected officials. Yes, I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. No more discussion for anybody? Mr. Fernandez, no? No. Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge Mr. Fernandez and Mr. Prida on roll call, but as present. One more thing? Go ahead, Mr. Prida.
Yeah, if we can, on this discussion, if we can go and enter one more time, I think we apply on the overweight permit like in 2014 was Mr. Dominguez that we applied for and it was maybe made a law that we can cross overweight on the Walter Bridge without going into the whole this very difficult getting the permit done in the overweight permit with the city. I think this is one of the most difficult parts to get the overweight permit done. If you go to El Paso, if you go too far, they have all these restrictions, all these scales that will punish immediately the trucks. So what we're looking, maybe it's going down. We have a bill that was approved in Austin with Congressman, who was it? Richard Raymond. And I think the city never took any action on this. So I think it's very important for us to go and to compete in these overweight permits, because in Mexico you can load maybe 4,000 more pounds on every trailer. And here it's very difficult. You will get fined, you will get $500 fine. And with that said, we're losing competitiveness against the other ports. I can show you some of our members.
Mr. Prida, I'm going to interrupt you. I think right now we're discussing items, so we could discuss it in other business
Thank
and
you.
then put it for motion for discussion for next week, but we can put another business. But we need to close this item first.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
But item for discussion on number 5 on the just a recommendation. So I guess we'll do. I got a motion for recommend. See, the motion says so it's approved, so it's.
So the question for the vote?
Yeah, I guess we had a second, right? And we had discussion, so all we need is votes in favor to continue with motion, with item number 1 on.
In favor?
In favor? Okay. So, Item number one passes unanimous. And then another business, I guess, that we should be discussing is, see if we could look into our overweight policy and how we could expand that and increase our weight capacity. You're talking about something about in FAR and in El Paso, they have different restrictions or?
Less restrictions.
Less restrictions.
Less
Yeah, well, different, yeah.
We have different,
We'll put an item for your next meeting, and by then, we'll have already researched and looked into your concern.
And then we'll probably have some, I know you had told me you had some research done, you didn't send it to me for this item, but we'll send it to both Ms. Limon, and then we could put it together and discuss it in our next meeting to see if there's something that can be done or changed or to make it compatible to what other borders, other ports of entry are doing, just stay competitive.
Thank you.
We'll take care of it.
And if we can add to the next agenda is the landfill. that
Yes.
The city bought all the private landfills now, but apparently we can't dispose liquids anymore here in Laredo, so we have to look for a resource out of town, and that gets expensive. We would like to bring the director so that we can have discussions why,
We've already scheduled him to be at the next meeting here.
just for the
We're
record.
gonna have an item on the agenda addressing that.
Is that any type of liquids or?
Any liquid.
Any liquids, yeah.
Yes.
And for FDA restrictions, and also there's other methods, we'd always go to Ponderosa, but the city bought that property, so they shut us down, and only option we have, the closest one is Robstown,
Oh, really? For any type of?
for liquid destruction, because the enzymes, it gets in there and it gets in their water system, there's a process, and they don't wanna do that, so. But Ponderosa dug down deep, and they put down some kind of plastic lining which will allow it. And they have that capability there, which would help the brokerage industry considerably, because there's still destruction, and it's just a process that we have to go through, including with the FDA's. They do a on-site visit, so they follow you all the way down, and they charge you for that to come back mileage as well, so.
I
It's
told
just a challenge in itself.
I told one of my employees today to call Zapata.
Yeah, they have
They'll
some-
accept it.
But even like, if a pallet of bottled water, you can't.
Yeah.
No
Like
liquid,
just normal-
Soap, detergent, water, well, I know that's considered a hazmat, that's not allowed here, we have to do that, and that's another topic, but just a basic process.
The liquids, I mean, we need to throw things away. Sometimes it's because they expired, and the client wants for us proof that it was destroyed, that we didn't give it away, or we're not selling stuff that it's expired, so we gotta dispose of it.
Yeah. And one more thing on our part, I know that there was an item that was discussed with me by Ms. Limon related to utilizing certain funding to be able to funnel the funding of the bridge to help fund a connector road here. However, I asked her to pull it off so that I had an opportunity to talk to you all, because there's an ordinance that the city has, and we'd be happy to discuss it in more detail at the next meeting, and I'll ask her to put the agenda item on if you wish. The reason I asked her to pull it off is because there's an ordinance that dictates how the monies are spent when it comes to the tolls, and the only ones that can change that are the members of the city council giving direction to staff, and then we'll implement their policy. But we'll be happy to talk about it, but I asked her to pull it because of that ordinance.
You need to put that on the item, we could
You'd like to
discuss
see
yeah,
it?
Please.
Okay, we'll put it on. and we'll talk about it.
And have that information ready, like the ordinance or what can be done, and, because that was a raise in 2017. So I just, a little history on that, just how it goes, and if you go back and fetch it to that.
And for instance,
I see it right.
I'll bring all the evidence, all the paperwork and everything. I have a recording, it's 12 minutes long. We want to hear Mr.
Well,
De
just
Leon
have the
asking for that
details.
money and all of that. That's where he was discussing what they were gonna use the monies for when they increased the toll bridge.
I will report that I did show up and view the MPO meeting today that occurred here in this chamber. And in the MPO meeting that was discussed, the roadway, the Vicio roadway, and monies were committed by the MPO to proceed with the project. And so it is moving along. However, before we can start funding other things that aren't in the ordinance for bridge revenue, it needs to go to the mayor and council, and there needs to be a policy change approved by the majority of the council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Landine.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Any other items on other business? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the committee. Kent Richard, Assistant Bridge Director. Councilmember Perez wanted me to give a quick update on our U-turns with our insufficient funds. We've been tracking it since June of last year. We started implementing the fine in April. We had a high of 500 U-turns at World Trade Bridge, and currently for July, we had 317. So that number has, in the last 3 or 4 months, it has been in the 317, 320, 322 range. And with World Trade alone, since April to now, end of July, we've collected $50,000 in U-turn fees. At Columbia, we're around 15, 20, 25 U-turns on a monthly basis. And since April to now, $3,500 we've collected in insufficient funds for Columbia Bridge.
Well, thank you, Mr. Richard. I think that number is definitely significant, that, almost 50% down from that 500 number, 200 trucks less, that's, we're talking about 10-minute haul, so that's 2,000 minutes that we saved on haul stop, on traffic.
Hopefully that number will continue to
Exactly.
decrease. That's our plan. And
Raise the fee.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Well, it worked a little bit, and we're still gonna have those accidental ones, but that's great news. Thank you,
Has
Mr.
that
Richard.
eliminated the repeat offenders? Have they dropped down or?
Yes, basically of the 317 for the month of July, 166 of them were single offenses. We had one account that had 6, 3 accounts had 5, 6 accounts had 4. But way back when we started, we had several accounts where we had, in the 2, 3, 4 ranges, those numbers were much higher.
Yeah.
So, that number is coming down as well.
Maybe we should add more to the reoccurring offenders.
I think so too.
Yeah, but the one thing I know that we made reference to is, it wasn't on this agenda, I know that we brought it up every meeting, just a report. It'd be really helpful just to see what we can do, and maybe make an additional recommendation as my colleagues have stated here, increasing the amount if they continue doing just to repeat offenders.
Understand?
And just a report, just a quick report as you did right now. Thank you.
All right, thank
Give
you.
it loud, Chairman.
Yeah, the numbers, last time I heard for around April, 16 accounts had 3, 7 accounts had 4. So yeah, that's very good numbers. Thank you, Mr. Richard. Anything else? Yes, sir, Mr. Prida.
Thank you. For the next meeting, I would like to make an address about on Bridge 1 and 2, or in Colombia, to try to implement the tax for the toll for regular passengers. We have to move on. The city only has one line, one exclusive lane.
Southbound traffic going through the bridges, non-commercial traffic.
I think it is time that we invest in the city. We're the same as 30 years ago. I think we have to implement in all the bridge in bridge number 2 and bridge number 1 in Colombia to try to make this campaign. So I think the users are most likely going to repeat. We have 70-90% of the users that come every day. So we have to make an effort to get everything electronic. Every single booth that will be, just leave 1 or 2 like in Mexico they do, 1 or 2 that you can pay, the rest of them electronic.
I don't know, Ms. Libon, have you guys done any study on that, on how many non-commercial traffic is actually people pay on cash? Because I know there's one exclusive for the tag, but there's 2 or 3 more lanes that you can use the tag as well. And then there's probably the other ones are cash. Bring up Mr. Frida saying, convert more lanes or kind of make it for locals, at least or something, a campaign to make it more people using the tags. How would that help the city and, lower cost and lower, employees there, or use that money for somewhere else or for improvements?
Yes, Yvette Limon for the record again. Well, we'll go ahead and use our marketing manager to promote the use of the ABI. We currently have approximately 28% of our non-commercial crossings that are part of the ABI program, but we'll continue to encourage people. At this point, we haven't considered it mandatory. I mean, sometimes people are like day to day and they can't tie up money. If we're having issues on the commercial side, what it cost of, what issues would we bring forth to customers if we make it mandatory on the non-commercial side? But we will definitely encourage participation in the ABI program.
What, right now, is the rate different?
10 cents per axle less, $1.65 per axle on ABI users and $1.75 per axle on cash users.
And the cars?
That's
And
It's, we charge per axle.
That's right.
We charge per axle.
So it's 20 cents less
Yeah.
on a cart, on a regular,
350 versus 330 ABI, 350 cash.
But what he's saying is add more, so that line of the ones that have to pay cash is longer, and so you're kind of obligating them to, is that what you're trying to say? Is that what you're trying to say, Mr. Fiscal?
well, we need,
And we can look into it because of course we don't want to discourage.
Oh, but then again,
or
you would
you
have
could,
to.
yeah, kind of slowly move towards, making the second line out also exclusive, and now you have two exclusives for the tag. Again, that's the way to slowly, but it is a good point. Is there a minimum deposit on to open up a tag?
$20 for non-commercial accounts and $50 for commercial accounts.
$20 for
So
non
$20. So for some people, $20 is a lot to have to tie it in and get a tag and only use that card through the ABI. If they have multiple cars, they have to buy multiple tags.
Correct.
So for some, it is convenient. For others, they choose to pay cash. But we can definitely encourage participation. We'll promote it and see the results.
I hope we do the route of encouraging more than charging more, because, I mean, our objective is always to reduce pricing, and obviously that money will go to the general fund and won't go to where we want it to go to, so.
But the savings, we could, help them, with the savings, if we bring some ideas to help them reduce costs. One last question, how easy it is to deposit to the accounts? Is it really, user-friendly, or is it, they have to do a wire transfer, a check?
Oh, no,
the
no.
offices?
We do have multiple options to deposit
Like
into
on
the
the app, there's an
ABI.
app now?
At Bridge 2, we have a drop box. They can drop it off after hours and we post it the next day. We have the automatic replenishment where the customer chooses and identifies a dollar amount. If my minimum balance goes below, let's say, $10, charge my credit card, another $50 or $100 or whatever. They identify different amounts depending on their crossings.
Okay.
So
it's
we
really
have the
user-friendly,
auto
though.
replenishment, they can do it over the phone, they can do it online, they can do it in our customer service centers, which is at Bridge 2, at Colombia, and at World Trade. There's multiple, we have credit card kiosks, a station that they themselves do it in our customer service center at Bridge 2 and at World Trade. There's many options for them to deposit it to their
Somebody
ABI.
asking them why they don't use the ABI, that would be some good information on
Well,
why they don't.
it's, and Ms. Limon, is it still a RFI sticker on the window, or is it a little device?
It is the RFI sticker tag,
And
RFID
it's-
sticker
And
tag.
it's tied to the Century, now, is it?
No.
No.
It was before, no?
It was years back,
Sí,
it
¿verdad?
was.
When they used to have Century, yes.
We
Not
had
that
we had the compatible tags.
Yeah.
But then
Something
CBP
happened,
changed
changed
it
it, okay.
and then we changed ours, so, yeah. Not compatible anymore.
Maybe the process to getting the tag is really difficult. Again, you have to go down and ID and everything. Just sell it. Just sell it in the ticket booth. $5, take your ticket, place it there online, you put it up, and that's the way they do it in Mexico. Just pass, $5, here's your sticker. You have to add funds, go to this website and get PayPal, get Venmo, but if you want to do the old ways, the old way that we have been doing, to get down and go to the office and get everything, and then your paperwork and your ID and your phone, people don't want to do that. Nowadays, it's a world that moves really quick. So my idea is just put it, sell it on the toll booths, boom. You can give it up online and go closing lines and leave too.
Mr. Frida, if I may, we are looking into doing the online application. We're in the beginning stages of allowing a new account
Okay,
to be open online. We're working on that. But to deposit, there's multiple ways to deposit to where they don't have to physically have to go to the customer service centers.
okay.
But yeah, that'd be a good start, though, just make it easier for subscribers and new subscribers to be able to do it online in 2 minutes, log in, and then from there, we can see a little increment from that 28%, and then continue to market it. Okay, well,
Yes.
definitely good start, and then we can follow up on next
Thank you.
on that project. Awesome. Anybody else with any items on other business?
Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Luna?
I'd like to learn more about the designated Tesla lane at the Columbia Bridge.
It's there. It says Tesla.
You know, I'd
That's
like,
it, it is what it is.
I'd
It
like
just
to
says
learn more
Tesla,
about it.
And anybody can use it.
It just says Tesla.
It
So
just says Tesla.
it's a promotional,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
marketing.
that, luckily the Nuevo Leon governor is a little innovative guy, different as the ones we have in Tamaulipas, and he just, I guess it was a quick idea that when he met the Tesla guy's like, oh, I'll give you a line to put Tesla on top. And they're happy.
So if another major manufacturer wanted to sponsor a lane, they could?
Not on the US side.
Right, not on the US side.
No, on the Mexican side, it's just, but it's, anybody can use it, and there's 2 lanes, and it just says Tesla.
Looks nice.
Yeah, and, Colombia, I don't know how many trucks of Tesla Tesla parts. They don't manufacture the car in Mexico. There's a lot of suppliers, like the brake pads or the hinges for the car, for the doors, stuff like that.
Right.
And the shipment, but it's on the far left, the trucks, commercial trucks always use the far right. So it's kind of like, it was just
Okay.
smart.
No, I'm familiar with the tier 1 suppliers. I worked for one of the companies that, for 35 years, that now supplies.
I thought it was gonna be
Tesla.
for, like, they're gonna start building cars, and that's gonna be exclusive for the actual car that they build it, but,
Tier 1.
yeah, it never,
Good marketing.
it's just good marketing, a good idea.
Good marketing.
Ms. Perez? Good comment.
Hi, everyone. Vanessa Perez, council member, District 7, for the record. I just wanted to bring up an article that, I don't know if you all got to read it, but it was in the San Antonio Business Journal 2 days ago. And it's titled, Port Corpus Christi CEO, San Antonio to Feel Economic Wave from $650 Million Plan. And if you go through the article, they talk about infrastructure at Port Corpus Christi, and at some point, they say that they're gonna be able to handle more vessel traffic and allow for more growth. And at the very end of the article, they say, he added, what San Antonio, Corpus Christi, and Laredo, a major inland port, are creating is a fantastic triangle of global commerce. So I don't know if you all had a chance to read that or not, but I'm thinking $650 million investment from Corpus Christi, coming through San Antonio, coming through Laredo. I kind of wanted to see if maybe for the next meeting, if the committee could start the conversation on just, how important the port is, and when it comes to going and asking for funding for infrastructure, because I've noticed that in conversations about infrastructure for Vallecillo and things like that, it seems like Laredo isn't really given any special consideration in terms of, look at everything that we're able to accomplish despite the challenges that we have. Whereas if we were to clear up a lot of these challenges, how much more would we be able to do for the region and for the entire country, for the entire world, right? Because we're the gateway. So I think for next agenda, hopefully if you all could have a conversation about how we can incorporate this type of news, even with the Tesla lane that Mr. Lindgren brought up. I think even just from a marketing standpoint, it's a really good selling point that, hey, I have my own lane. The Tesla parts come through us. I don't know, it's just, there's just something about that kind of makes Laredo stand out, and I don't think that when it comes to the funding for the infrastructure, we're being asked to prioritize certain projects that are behind, that projects that should have already been developed. For example, Vallecillo, Hachar-Ruthinger, those roads have been in discussion for decades. And we're barely talking about putting money for those, but at the expense of other projects that are needed to prevent the same congestion. So it almost feels like we're always just playing catch up, and we don't have enough money to actually put ourselves in a situation where we don't have to be retroactively trying to fix problems versus laying everything down so that everything just kind of runs smoothly. And I think our city deserves the opportunity to get to that point, but we need more help, I think, from the state. And I think that this Port of Entry Committee can help elevate the marketing of the port, and hopefully, maybe like Mr. Dominguez suggested, super port, calling it like a super port or something, something that we can create that will help us when we're talking about getting monies for infrastructure, hopefully give us a little bit extra money so that we can use some of the monies to fix problems, but then some of the monies will be designated to prevent problems, just because especially, $650 million investment in Corpus, that's gonna bring a lot this way. And we don't wanna say that we can't handle it, because we can, but if we could handle it better, more efficiently, it would be better for everybody.
I can talk to you a little bit about that. We met Corpus. I know the chamber would be the representative of the Laredo Port and Corpus and San Antonio. They would meet every month just to see what was going on in that triangle. But we were excited when they started drenching 24 hours at Corpus. They were gonna get bigger vessels than Houston, and we were all excited. That was the water port that we didn't have, and it was the closest to Laredo. Unfortunately, they only take bulk things like sand, like the big windmills, and so it was certain things they said that they didn't want containers, that it was too messy. But then again, that was a couple of years ago, 5, 6 years ago. Hopefully they've changed their mind, or somebody else took over, and hopefully they can do that. But that was like 5, 6 years ago.
At $650 million, I welcome this conversation. I hope that we can engage, but the one thing.
We'll bring them here.
Take consideration,
They'll come.
not them just within ourselves first, then we can focus on how we expand. But I think that'd be a welcome addition, a good conversation. I think we'll realize, some of us, that Laredo alone, we're our own worst enemy. Because a lot of times, there's a lot of projects that could move forward. And I consider ourselves all ambassadors. Gene having a symposium here in a couple of weeks, and that coming out, that kind of promotes Laredo. On top of that, there's other individuals that are always traveling, going up north. And as myself, I'm always pushing Laredo, trying to see what we could do. But when it comes down to it, I always hear the same thing, and it's the funding math. We generate a lot of funding, we just miss management. So it's a good welcome addition. Hopefully we can have a discussion within a required timeframe, obviously.
Well, I think that the work that you all do is fantastic, and I thank you all again for serving on this committee, and I look forward to the solutions that you guys bring to the problems. And you can see from the report of the insufficient fees, it's working, that's something that you guys helped with. And so, just want to kind of keep ahead with all of these things that are happening in the port. Mr. Lincoln?
Yeah, I also welcome your comments and your suggestion that we pull together as a team. I know a lot of us belong to or lead trade organizations, and we have committees on infrastructure and roads, and some of us are in the room. Every chance we get, we're challenging the funding formulas from TxDOT, because a lot of it's based on population, as we know. We continue to challenge that, but let's take the opportunity to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think this committee should go lobby Austin and get some more money for infrastructure.
But I think the idea would be to also hire somebody, a company that promotes the port, not just us. Sometimes I speak about the port and, well, of course you live there. That's why you want it to be promoted. Instead of having a third party doing this, TV ads, and it's just an image problem. Laredo gets a lot of attention sometimes for not the right reasons. And doing it properly with a company that promotes this everywhere, it'll change the minds. If you go to Austin to try to lobby it, I think it's not as easy, because, okay, you're from Laredo, and they don't look at Laredo the same way they do Corpus. So looking at or talking to them from another point of view, that may open the door for us.
So the lobbying is something different. I mean, what he was saying is.
No, no,
different
I mean
the-
talking about
this
promoting and getting the
committee,
funds and getting all that.
about this committee going and asking for the funds because we know exactly what the issues are, the problems.
Right,
The,
that is true.
the infrastructure that we really need. That's what we have to go. I mean, they're giving a lot of federal money to the state and we should go grab it.
That is true.
Take advantage.
Mr.
When I was at I go to the conventions all the time and stuff for the Republican Party, because I used to be the Republican Party chair for Cook County. When I go up and I speak to people, Judith Affadini's one of my cousins, and she's a Democrat, so I get all the different views from all the different people. And McAllen has a big lobbyist group. So does Carpus. So does San Antonio. Every time you say you're from Laredo, they look at you as though you're over here. You don't count. You don't rate. And I've been at all the meetings that they have, and that's the way it goes. I mean, when I went up there, I used to promote Laredo as much as I could. But the problem is, they look at us in a different, we're always put, no, you're over there on that side. We're on this side. And we need to change the way people see Laredo. How big our port is, what we do. I always brought up, we're the largest port of entry into the country. And yet, we have the least infrastructure of any of these different entities that we're talking about right now. These cities don't do what we do. It's like when I discussed the Mines Road issue with some of the representatives up there and stuff, they tell me, well, what would you do? I said, well, I would put a designated overpass for trucks coming from Columbia all the way to World Trade. I said, but you don't need to do that. You can start it right outside of Muller's and then come straight to World Trade and I-35 from there. Because that's where right where Muller's is, that's where the holdup is. All the trucks are turning in, and when the light turns red, they're still turning. Well, the other trucks coming from Columbia can't go then, because the lanes are full. And if anybody's driven that route, which I know you all have, all you gotta do is look at it, it shows. I used to drive in from Columbia every day, because I worked with customs. It'd take us an hour and a half to 2 hours to get back to Laredo. And that's ridiculous. I mean, we need more infrastructure, especially from our bridges. I asked one person, how long do you think it would take to pay for that? How much money would it take? And they're all, well, this, that. I said, how much money do you think it would make if you could get the trucks across the bridge quicker and you could get all that traffic moved? Because the trucks sitting in that line are costing people money, especially most of the transportation people. And I said, it's ridiculous. It would take more than a half a day of what the trucks are bringing in and out. It's about $1 billion a day. It would pay for it in no time. But you need to have it done. But we never do anything to promote it. That's it. Bottom line is, Laredo just doesn't, we don't go up there and really get the money for our infrastructure. And we have to. You have to go talk to people, you have to sit down and talk to them. I've sat at meals with different representatives and stuff and talked to them about it. A lot of them agree with me, but they're not gonna put it out there. We have to put it out there. Nobody else is.
No, last meeting we did get presented with expansion or the projects coming up from TxDOT and funded projects, which is definitely on your side, what you're saying, Mr. Young, and we're always fighting for that, and even the approved projects. I think the Achar, Rosinger Road, that's approved and it's funded, and that's gonna be ready in 5 years?
No, 2023 letting in August.
The groundbreaking, no?
Yeah,
Definitely.
because they had to take it over from Dannenbaum from the county, and then they were, TxDOT's gonna work on it, but because of their schedule and everything, it's 2023
To start.
to start.
To start
They had a
groundbreaking.
bankroll
Then
along
we
the
mentioned that in the
Cat
project, it's gonna take, within the next 10 years, there's already projects already funded and put out that are not gonna start, and the projects we're talking about, and money's already there. I'm just saying it's just, so the ones that are like Vallecillo, that's not even on nobody's radar as in funded. That's why we're trying to move a different way and see what we could do to extra fund it, to city funded, so it could start rolling, because that's another a scapegoat for that mines traffic. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and I think here, there's, yes, I'm gonna say, Mr. Morris, there's presidents of a lot of trade organizations, from economic development, from customs brokers, and Mexican US, to trucking. And I think in the past year and a half, and together with other organizations, with, united together, and it's moving along. I think the congressman has been coming in and listening to us, so we just gotta keep the music going and pushing, so it won't stop, and finally we'll hit that momentum where all that cash starts coming in easy.
Everybody working together.
We have to keep doing it.
Everybody working
Yeah.
together will get it done.
Yeah.
You just have to really push it.
We're doing it, different trade organizations are doing it, it's just takes a long time, but we need all the help we can get. But Mr. Morris?
So I just wanted to say a couple of things. I appreciate the work that we're doing on this. Gene mentioned, Mr. Lindgren mentioned associations, and I'm part of the transportation committees on 2 different associations in town and pushing infrastructure. And so there's kind of 2 issues when it comes to funding. One is we say we can't do anything because TxDOT or government monies don't make it to us, and that is true. And we need to work on ways that we can get that money to us. It's changing the categories of funding and different things along those lines where we qualify for some. But there's a lot of roadways and infrastructure that we need that are municipal streets that are not part of the TxDOT system. And we need to focus as a city on those issues as well and stop funding things that are not part of the infrastructure that are gonna bring more money and more credibility to our city. There's some things, we have money coming in from bridge tolls that we're using for other funds. They should be used for, $60 million a year in bridge tolls. And those are going to salaries and different things like that. They should be going to infrastructure. So I would encourage city council to really start looking along those lines where we can use the money that we've got to do the things that we need. Valley CO has been argued for a long time because it's an off-system road. It's not a TxDOT road. But we're wanting TxDOT to fund it for us.
2015.
Since for many years, too many years. And the city hasn't come to the table really. Well, they have, but the point I'm trying to make is the city could do much more with the funds that we do get towards infrastructure. So I would really encourage you and city council to push along those lines.
One of the things that I did put on, well, it came up in a discussion on the TRZ for the south, was to create a TRZ in the Mines Road area so that we could capture some of that growth and then, use that money to reinvest into the area. So we're still working on that, but yes, I agree, we should.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Morris, for comments. Thank you, Ms. Perez. And thank you for the support on this committee. There's any other discussion?
Next meeting,
Perfect.
no?
Next item, it's scheduled next meeting, or right now we're August 17th. I think we do have a couple of items that we brought up for next meeting, so we definitely want to do it in September. We got the, excuse me?
In 2 weeks, no, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Can we avoid the symposium?
Which week is that, the 27th or the 20th?
It's the evening of the 21st of September, and the full day event is the 22nd of September.
Okay, and then the week of the 14th and 15th of September, that's a holiday in Mexico, on that Thursday or?
I'll be traveling as well, man, I'll be out of town, so.
So can we put it, I guess, 1 month and 1 week from today, on the last week of September, which is the 28th, another Wednesday? That's a month and a week, huh?
29.
The 28th.
Wednesday, yeah.
Wait, Wednesday, 28th, we keep it on Wednesday.
6 p.m.?
Yeah, fine. 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, it's 28th of September?
Yep.
Perfect. 9/28 at 6 p.m.
Motion adjourned?
Second, on favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Good job.
Thank you so much.